Subscribe and comment your city. The sun rose slowly over Makan village, casting its warm light across the land like a gentle blessing from the ancestors. The village was waking, stretching, and breathing in the new day. The dusty road shimmered under the morning glow, as if they held the memories of every footstep that had walked upon them. Children running barefoot, traders carrying baskets, elders taking slow, thoughtful steps. In Makan, even the roads were storytellers. Children's laughter filled the air like birdsong after the first rains. Little boys chased each other with sticks shaped like spears, while girls braided each other's hair and hummed tunes passed down by their grandmothers. Their joy was pure, untouched by the troubles that adults carried in their hearts. At the edge of the market square, women arranged fruits on wooden tables. Bright oranges, sweet bananas, and mangoes that glowed like tiny suns. They called out to one another, trading jokes and old proverbs. A tree that forgets its roots will soon fall, one woman said while tightening her headscarf. And a child who refuses wisdom becomes a stranger to peace, another replied, smiling as she poured groundnuts into a bowl. Across the square stood the ancient baobab tree, its wide trunk like the back of a giant spirit. Beneath its shade sat the village elders, their walking sticks resting across their laps. They spoke in low voices, discussing the changing times, the new school, the new rules, and whether the future would honor the past. One elder, Baba Cato, tapped his staff and said, "The world is moving fast, but if we do not guide it, it will leave our children behind." Their words drifted into the breeze, carried across the village like an old song. Not far from the baobab tree walked Musa, a man whose quiet strength was known to all. He was tall, with calm eyes that seemed to see deeper than most. People often said, "Musa's heart is a pot that never boils over." Even when life struck him hard, losing his wife, raising his daughter alone, he stayed steady like the mountain beyond the river. This morning, he walked with purpose, carrying a small woven basket of cassava he planned to sell before going to work. But his steps slowed when he reached the doorway of his simple home. Inside, little Amina was tying her school shoes. The laces were worn, but she handled them with care, her small fingers nimble and gentle. She looked up and smiled shyly when she saw her father. "Are you ready, my flower?" Musa asked. Amina nodded, her eyes bright but unsure. "Yes, Papa." She loved school, the books, the lessons, the stories. But she struggled with confidence, especially when other children mocked her soft voice or her old shoes. She kept these troubles hidden, believing her father had enough to worry about. Musa knelt beside her and adjusted her collar. "You walk with the strength of your mother," he said softly. "Do not forget that." Amina's lips curved into a small smile, and she hugged him tightly. Father and daughter walked together toward the school, which stood at the edge of the village. It was new, painted in bright colors, with metal doors and tall windows. But despite its modern shape, it still breathed the spirit of Makan. Teachers greeted parents with respect, and children bowed slightly to show good manners. The schoolyard was alive with chatter and movement. As they approached the gate, Musa paused. He looked at the building, then down at his daughter. Something weighed in his heart, a small worry that he could not yet name. But he swallowed it quietly, telling himself that the spirits would watch over her. "Go on, Amina," he said gently. "Learn well. Remember, your mind is your shield." Amina nodded and ran toward her classmates, her braids bouncing behind her. She waved once before disappearing into the crowd of children. Musa watched until she was gone, the morning breeze tugging at his clothes. Behind him, the village hummed with life. Ahead of him, the modern world stood waiting. And somewhere between the two, he felt a shift, a sign that the day would bring something unexpected. The morning sun rose slowly over Makan village, touching the land with a soft golden light that felt like a blessing from the ancestors. The dusty road shimmered beneath it, long winding paths that held the footsteps and secrets of many generations. These roads were more than just dirt and stone. They were the veins of the village, carrying stories from one home to another, from one heart to another. Every path seemed to whisper, "I have seen joy, I have seen pain, and I will see more." Children ran along these pathways with bare feet, kicking up little clouds of dust that danced behind them. Their laughter echoed through the village, bright and full of life. Some pretended to be warriors from old tales, shouting, "I am the Lion of Makand," while chasing one another. Others skipped rope made from old cloth strips, singing songs their mothers taught them. Traders walked the same paths, but with slower, heavier steps. Their baskets were filled with cassava, groundnuts, and ripe bananas. As they moved from one corner of the village to another, they greeted people with warm smiles and familiar proverbs. "A journey is easier when the heart carries no bitterness," one trader told a neighbor as she passed. "And heavier when the mind refuses peace," the neighbor replied, nodding in agreement. Farther down the road, the women of Makand arranged their fruits and vegetables on wooden tables. The colors, bright orange papayas, green avocados, and golden maize, looked like small gifts from the earth. These women talked, laughed, and gossiped, but beneath their words lay the wisdom of mothers who had seen life from many angles. Not far from the market stood the ancient baobab tree, tall and wide like a silent guardian of history. Beneath it sat the elders, their gray hair shining in the morning light. They leaned on their carved walking sticks, speaking in low voices. "Makand is changing," Baba Cato murmured. "The new school brings knowledge, but also confusion." Another elder sighed. "When new water enters a calabash, the old water must make room. We must guide the young ones so they don't lose themselves." Their voices blended with the sounds of the village, becoming part of the rhythm of the morning. A few steps away, Musa walked quietly down the road. He moved with calm strength, like a man who carried burdens but refused to let them break him. His face was gentle, his steps steady. People greeted him warmly. "Musa, the peaceful one, how is the morning?" He smiled softly. "The morning is kind. May your day also be kind." The villagers respected him. They admired how he raised his daughter alone after losing his wife. They admired how he worked hard, yet never let anger rule his voice. Inside his small home, Amina stood near the doorway, adjusting her school bag with careful hands. She was only 9, with big thoughtful eyes and a shy smile that came and went like a timid bird. She loved learning, reading, and listening to stories. But she struggled with fear. Fear of mistakes, fear of being laughed at, fear of not being enough. When Musa stepped inside, she looked up at him and whispered, "Papa, are we late?" "No, my flower," he replied gently. "We are right on time. The path waits for us." They stepped onto the dusty road together. Musa walked with long strides while Amina walked beside him, her small steps trying to match his. Every now and then, she looked around, at children passing by, at traders calling out, at the rising smoke from cooking fires. "Papa," she said softly, "why do the roads always look the same?" Musa chuckled, placing a large hand on her back. "Because the roads remember every story. Amina, they remember your steps, my steps, even the steps of your grandparents. When a path holds many memories, it becomes part of the village's heart." Amina nodded, thinking deeply, as children her age often do. They arrived at the new school building, a colorful structure with wide windows and strong walls. It looked modern, but the spirit of Makand lived in it. Teachers greeted parents respectfully. Children bowed their heads politely. The sound of learning mixed with the songs of the morning birds. "Go, Amina," Musa whispered. "Let your mind shine brighter than the sun." Amina hugged him quickly, then walked toward her classmates. Her heart was nervous, but her father's words rested inside her like a warm ember. Musa watched her for a long moment. A small wind passed by, carrying with it the faint whispers of the ancestors. It brushed his cheek, as if warning him gently. "The road ahead holds shadows. Walk with your eyes open." He did not yet understand the meaning, but he felt it deep in his spirit. The morning sun rose softly over Makand village, spreading a warm glow across the land. As the light touched the dusty roads and mud brick houses, the village began to breathe with life. Before the worries of the day, before the conflicts that hide in the shadows of the heart, there was a sound more precious than gold, the laughter of children. Their laughter rolled to the village like a fresh breeze after a long drought. It bounced off the walls, danced around the cooking fires, and wrapped itself around every soul that heard it. The children played freely, their joy untouched by the burdens that adults carried quietly in their chests. Some children chased each other with sticks shaped like spears. Others built small houses from stones and leaves, pretending to be elders who made wise decisions. A group of girls braided each other's hair, while humming the old songs their mothers taught them. Where the sun rises, hope rises too. Their voices were soft, but their joy was loud enough to fill the morning. Women at the market paused for a moment to smile at the children's games. As they arranged their fruits, bright mangoes, green avocados, and sweet bananas, they swapped small stories and gentle proverbs. One woman laughed and said, "Children are like the morning sun, warm, honest, and full of promise." Another nodded, yes, until the clouds of life touched them. Her words hung in the air, quiet but heavy, like a warning that only those with wise hearts could hear. Under the wide branches of the old baobab tree, the elders sat in their usual circle. They watched the children with soft eyes, whispering among themselves. Baba Cato stroked his beard and said, "Listen to that laughter. It is the heartbeat of Macan." Another elder sighed thoughtfully. "Let us pray it stays unbroken. A child's joy can be fragile when the winds of change blow too hard." Their voices blended with the playful shouts of the children, creating a harmony that felt ancient, like the past and present singing together. Not far from the market, Musa walked along the road, his steps slow and thoughtful. His face was calm, but inside him lived the weight of a father who had walked through fire and returned with scars. Villagers greeted him kindly. "Musa, the man with a quiet heart." He nodded gently. "Peace to your home." Despite his calm smile, he noticed something others often missed: the small changes in the air, the quiet shifts in the village's spirit. But he carried on, unwilling to burden others with his worries. Inside their home, Amina stood near the door, holding her school bag tightly. The sound of the village children playing drifted inside, and she listened with longing. Though she loved school deeply, she often felt too shy, too quiet, too soft for the world around her. When Musa walked in, she tried to hide her nervousness, offering him a small smile. "Papa," she whispered, "the other children are already playing." Musa knelt down and touched her cheek gently. "Let their laughter remind you of this. Amina, joy belongs to every child, even you." She looked down at her shoes. "Sometimes it feels like I am different." "You are," he said with a smile, "different like a rare flower. But even rare flowers must bloom." Amina let out a tiny giggle, soft and pure like the morning breeze. For a moment, she matched the laughter outside. Together, they walked through the village. Children ran past them, still laughing, still unaware of the storms that life sometimes brought. Amina watched them with wide eyes, wishing she felt as free as they did. When they reached the school, the sounds of joy continued. Children greeting friends, sharing small snacks, racing to the steps of the building. The school stood tall, modern, but rooted in the culture of Macan. Teachers greeted families with the respect of elders, bowing slightly as a sign of humility. One teacher smiled warmly at Amina. "Good morning, child." Amina bowed her head shyly. "Good morning, teacher." Musa watched the exchange with hope. He wanted his daughter to feel safe here, to feel the same freedom the other children felt. "Go, Amina," he said softly. "Find your joy today." She nodded quietly and ran toward the playground. For a brief moment, she joined the laughter, her voice small but clear. Musa turned to leave, comforted by the sound. But as he walked away, something stirred in his heart, a small uneasiness he could not explain. The laughter in the schoolyard was bright, but even the brightest laughter casts a shadow when trouble waits nearby. The sun rose gently over Macan village, painting the dusty roads in soft gold. A warm breeze passed through the tall baobab tree at the village center, carrying with it the laughter of children running barefoot as their shadows stretched across the ground. Chickens scattered, goats bleated, and the voices of women filled the morning air, voices that carried stories, wisdom, and the heartbeat of the village. Under a small row of wooden stalls, the women sold fruits with pride. Their hands were quick, their smiles bright, and their words full of old proverbs passed down by mothers before them. A ripe mango does not fall far from the tree, Mama Zari said as she handed a basket of oranges to a neighbor. And a stubborn child learns from the stick of life. Another woman answered, making the nearby women laugh. Their laughter was not loud, but full of the strength that only women who carry families, sorrows, and hopes at the same time could understand. They handed fruits to passing children, whispering blessings as easily as they breathed. Near the baobab tree, the elders sat in a circle, leaning on their carved sticks. Their gray hair shined in the sun like threads of silver. They discussed village matters, stopping often to remind each other of old lessons. The world is changing too fast, Elder Bako murmured, stroking his beard. But the roots of the baobab do not fear the wind, Elder Casa replied calmly. Not far from them walked Musa, a man respected by many and loved by all. His shoulders were broad, but his steps were quiet. He carried the gentle strength of a river, slow, steady, and full of patience. Villagers greeted him as he passed. Musa, may your day walk in peace, a woman called. And may peace enter your home, Musa replied with his usual warm smile. He was known for kindness, for never raising his voice, and for doing any work he could find to provide for his daughter. He raised Amina alone after life took his wife much too early. People often said, Musa's heart is softer than morning porridge, and they meant it as praise. Beside him walked the small figure of Amina, only 9 years old. She held her school bag tightly against her chest. Her eyes were big and shy, always watching the world before stepping into it. She loved school, but fear sometimes hid her voice and dimmed her confidence. Baba, she whispered, pulling at his hand. Do you think I will do well today? Musa stopped, crouched down, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. My child, he said gently, a seed may be small, but if it believes in the rain, it becomes a mighty tree. Walk with courage. Your mind is bright. Amina smiled softly, though her eyes still carried doubt. They reached the school, one of the first modern buildings in Makan village. Its walls were freshly painted, its windows wide, and yet its spirit belonged fully to the village. Children played under the trees outside, teachers greeted parents with respect, and a carved calabash hung above the entrance, a reminder that education and culture must drink from the same bowl. Teacher Kemi, a woman both stern and kind, waved them over. Musa, she said, your daughter grows wiser every day. Amina lowered her gaze, shy. Musa bowed his head. Thank you, teacher. She tries with all her heart. The bell rang, echoing like a drum through the village. The children burst into laughter, racing inside the school. Their voices rose like birds, singing hope into morning. Amina paused at the door and looked back at her father. I will try like the seed, she said quietly. Yes, Musa whispered with a proud smile. And the rain will find you. Amina ran inside, her footsteps light, her spirit trembling, but beginning to rise. Behind her, the village kept moving, women selling fruits and trading proverbs, elders discussing life under the ancient baobab, and Musa walking home with a heart full of dreams for his daughter. All was peaceful for now, but in Makan village, peace was only the breath before the storm. The morning sun rose slowly over Makan village, spreading warm light across the dusty roads and clay houses. The air was soft, carrying the smell of roasted cassava and the calls of early traders. Children ran barefoot to the narrow paths, their laughter dancing in the wind like bright birds. Women gathered under their stalls, arranging fruits in neat piles, mangoes glowing like gold, bananas curved like smiles, and oranges shining under the sun. Their voices wrapped around each other as they traded proverbs along with their goods. A village without children is a graveyard, one woman said proudly while handing a mango to a young boy. And a home without wisdom is a pot without a bottom, another replied, sending the women into gentle laughter. Their laughter blended with the rustling leaves of the giant baobab tree that stood like an ancient guardian in the center of the village. Its thick trunk held stories older than anyone alive, and its wide branches shaded the elders who gathered beneath it. Their carved walking sticks rested beside them like trusted friends. Elder Bahati cleared his throat and spoke first, his voice deep and steady. The winds are changing. Our children walk into new ways, yet their feet still stand on old soil. Elder and George lean forward. Change is like fire. It can warm or destroy. We must guide them before the flames rise too high. Another elder nodded. The school brings knowledge from far away, but we must not let the roots forget the taste of the earth. The elders' meeting was not just talk. It was a sacred gathering, a place where the balance of past and future was weighed. People respected this circle as much as a shrine. As the elder spoke, Musa walked past them with quiet steps. A simple man, yet respected more than many rich men. He wore a faded shirt and carried the calmness of a river in his eyes. Life had tested him, taking his wife too soon, but grief had softened him instead of hardening him. Musa, Elder Bahati called gently, "Your path is steady like the morning sun. May peace follow you." Musa bowed his head. "And may wisdom guide your tongues, elders." Beside him stood his daughter, Amina, clutching her school bag with both hands. Her small shoulders trembled slightly, though she tried to hide it. Musa noticed, as fathers with soft hearts always do. "My child," he murmured, bending down to her height, "your steps may be small, but your spirit is not." Amina looked up at him, her eyes wide and worried. "Baba, what if I make mistakes again? What if the teacher asks me to speak and my voice hides?" Musa smiled, brushing her cheek with the back of his hand. "Even the moon hides behind clouds, but it still shines. Speak when you can. Learn always. Your courage will grow." Amina nodded weakly, comforted but still afraid. Ahead of them stood the modern school building, a fresh symbol in the village. Its walls were smooth, its windows clear, yet its heart still beat with the rhythms of Makand. A calabash carved with additional patterns hung above the entrance, reminding everyone that knowledge must never forget culture. Children gathered by the doorway, their uniforms neat but dusty from play. Teachers stood nearby, their posture straight, their authority respected like that of the elders. In Makand village, teachers were not just instructors. They were guides, protectors, and voices of reason. Teacher Kemi approached with a warm smile. "Good morning, Musa. Amina, you look bright today." Amina lowered her gaze. "Good morning, teacher," she whispered. Teacher Kemi bent down, lifting Amina's chin gently. "Speak with your heart, child. Even a whisper can teach the world something." Amina nodded again, her shy smile flickering like a small flame. The school bell rang, a sharp, clear sound that echoed across the village, mixing with the elders' murmurs, the women's chatter, and the children's laughter. It carried a sense of hope and a hint of something yet unseen. Amina stepped forward, taking her first hesitant steps toward the classroom. She paused at the doorway, looked back at her father, and whispered, "I will try, Baba." Musa placed a hand on his chest. "That is all a heart needs." She disappeared inside as the teacher followed. Musa watched her go, pride rising inside him like dawn. Around him, the village moved in its rhythm. Elders seeking balance between past and future, women shaping the heart of community life, and children stepping into a world that carried both old shadows and new light. Everything felt peaceful. Everything felt right. But Makand village had its own secrets, and the winds whispered that change was closer than anyone knew. The sun rose gently over Makand village, spreading its warm glow on the dusty red roads that twisted like old stories across the land. Morning birds called from the trees, and the village slowly woke with familiar rhythm. Children ran barefoot through the paths, their laughter echoing like tiny drums beating in celebration of a new day. Women arranged fruits on wooden stalls, calling out to customers with bright, friendly voices. Mango zielio, sweet like morning blessings. Bananas for strong children. Come, take some. They traded not only fruits, but wisdom. A woman who walks with patience will never walk alone, one of them told another while fixing her baskets. Their laughter filled the air, warm and comforting, like the smell of fresh porridge drifting from nearby huts. Under the ancient baobab tree, the spirit tree of Makand, the elders gathered. Its wide branches spread like giant arms, as if protecting the village from the troubles of the world. The elders sat with straight backs, their walking sticks resting by their sides like loyal guards. Elder Bahati stroked his white beard. The world moves forward, yet we must keep our roots strong. Elder and George nodded slowly. A child who does not listen to the drumbeat will stumble during the dance. Their meeting was quiet but powerful. Their words shaped the way the village breathed. A few steps away, Musa walked with a calm, steady pace. His shadow stretched long behind him, following him like a faithful friend. Musa was known by everyone, not because he was wealthy or loud, but because his heart guided every step he took. He was a single father who never raised his voice, even when life had tried to crush him. People often said, Musa's strength is like a river. It moves slow, but it never stops. Ah, Musa, Elder Bahati greeted, lifting his hand. A good morning follows a man with a clean spirit. Musa bowed his head respectfully. May the ancestors guide your wisdom today, elders. Walking beside him was Amina, his 9-year-old daughter. She held her school bag close to her chest as if it was a shield. Her eyes darted around shyly, avoiding the curious looks of other children. Amina loved school, but words often got stuck in her throat, like small stones she couldn't swallow. Baba, she whispered, tugging softly at Musa's shirt. What if the teacher calls on me again? What if I can't speak? Musa stopped and knelt in front of her. His hands were rough from years of work, yet his touch was gentle. My child, your voice is small now, but even small seeds grow into tall trees. Amina's eyes softened. But what if I fail? Musa smiled, a slow, steady smile that always made her feel safe. Failing once does not make the sun stop rising. Try again. I stand behind you, even when I am not near. A soft wind brushed past them, carrying the scent of earth and the distant whispers of ancestors. Even the baobab leaves rustled, as if agreeing with Musa's words. Ahead stood the village school, a modern building, painted fresh white, yet decorated with traditional carvings along the walls. A wooden calabash hung above the main door, reminding everyone that knowledge is a gift from the past and the future. Children gathered in groups, chatting excitedly. Teachers stood at the entrance, their posture proud, their presence respected like that of village elders. In Makand, teachers were more than educators. They were keepers of the children's path. Teacher Kemi approached with a warm smile. Musa, Amina is early today. That is a good sign. Amina looked down, her small fingers twisting together nervously. Teacher Kemi leaned closer. Amina, remember, a quiet voice can still hold strong truth. Amina nodded shyly. Musa placed a hand on her shoulder. Go, my child. You carry more courage than you know. The school bell rang, sharp and clear. Children rushed inside, and Amina followed, taking slow, careful steps. At the doorway, she paused and looked back. Musa gave her a small nod, the kind that said, I believe in you, even when you do not believe in yourself. Amina disappeared into the classroom, the door closing behind her like the beginning of a new chapter. Musa exhaled deeply. His face remained calm, but inside him lived a storm of hopes, fears, and dreams for his daughter. He knew the world could be harsh, but he also knew strength lived in quiet hearts. And Musa's strength, quiet, steady, and unbroken, was the kind that changed destinies. The elders watched him from under the baobab tree. Elder and George whispered, A man guided by his heart shapes the future better than any sharp spear. Elder Bahati nodded. Yes, Musa's path is humble, but the spirits walk with him. The village continued its rhythm, women selling fruits, children learning, elders guarding tradition. Everything seemed peaceful, resting on the balance between old and new. But deep in the wind, a faint warning moved through the leaves. Makand village did not yet know that this calm morning was the beginning of a story that would test every heart, especially Musa's. The sun climbed higher over Makand village, lighting the red soil paths where children still chased each other with carefree joy. Women continued calling out from their fruit stalls, and elders under the baobab tree spoke in low, wise tones. But among all these sounds, one man moved with quiet purpose, Musa, the man the village respected for his steady heart. Every morning, Musa walked through the village with a bundle of firewood on one shoulder and a basket of handmade tools on the other. His steps were slow but strong, each one showing a man who carried both duty and love on his back. Though life had pushed him hard since his wife's passing, he never allowed bitterness to touch his smile. Neighbors often said, "Musa works like a mountain and loves like the river." And it was true. After dropping Amina at school, Musa went straight to the workshop where he shaped tools for farmers, hoes, knives, handles, and anything the village needed for daily survival. The sound of his hammer echoed like a heartbeat across the compound. Tonk, tonk, tonk. Every strike came with the thought of his daughter. She must never feel less than others. She must walk with confidence one day. Old Mzee Juma, a neighbor, stood by the doorway watching him. "Musa," he called, leaning on his cane, "you work too hard. Even the sun takes a rest behind the clouds." Musa wiped sweat from his brow and chuckled softly. "A man who raises a child alone carries no choice, Mzee. My hands must provide the path she will walk." Mzee Juma nodded slowly. Society watches men, like you, with sharp eyes. Some expect you to fail." Musa paused. The hammer hung still in his grip. "Then let them watch," he said quietly. "I do not work for their approval. I work for Amina's future." His words were simple, but there was a fire behind them, a fire that only fathers who carry too much can understand. At midday, Musa returned home to cook a simple meal. The small clay house felt big and empty without a second adult, yet Musa moved with familiarity. He washed cassava, lit the stove, stirred the pot, and even hummed softly, a tune his late wife used to sing. Sometimes, when the wind blew through the window, Musa stopped and closed his eyes. He could almost hear her voice saying, "Walk with patience, Musa. Our child needs your gentle strength." He breathed deeply and continued cooking, refusing to let sorrow overpower the responsibilities waiting in his hands. In the afternoon, he took vegetables to sell at the market. Some women watched him with pity, others with admiration. "Ai, Musa," one woman whispered to another, "raising a girl alone in this world is not easy." "But he does it without complaint," the other replied. "His heart is stronger than most men." When the school bell rang, Musa was already standing outside the gate. He always arrived early. Some said because he worried too much. Others said because he cared too deeply. Both were true. Amina ran out slowly, clutching her books. Her shoulders looked small under the weight of school expectations. Musa knelt to her height. "How was your day, my child?" he asked. Amina hesitated. "Teacher asked me to read, but I stumbled on a word." Musa gently lifted her chin. "Listen to me. Amina, even the strongest tree, was once a seed afraid of the sunlight. You stumbled today so that you can stand stronger tomorrow." "But the other children laughed," she whispered. Musa's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "Their laughter does not define you. Your courage does." He held her hand as they walked home, their shadows stretching long behind them. Two figures connected not just by blood, but by the quiet fight they faced together. At home, Musa cooked dinner, while Amina read her schoolbook out loud. Her voice trembled at times, but she kept going. Musa corrected her gently, never once showing impatience. When she finished, she said softly, "I may be one man, but together we are not weak." Amina leaned against him, her small hands wrapped around his arm. "Baba," she whispered, "I am trying." "I know," he replied, kissing the top of her head. "And that is enough for today." Outside, the baobab tree rustled as if the ancestors themselves were watching the pair, admiring a father carrying away the whole world, and a child learning to find her voice within it. The village sang with calm again, unaware that this quiet balance was soon to shift. Musa's strength would be tested in ways he never imagined, and Amina's courage would become the key to a story greater than both of them. The sun rose slowly over Makan village, spreading a warm golden glow across the dusty roads. The village was waking up like a giant stretching after a long sleep. Children ran barefoot along the paths, their laughter carrying through the morning air like the songs of bright birds. Women arranged baskets of mangoes, cassava, and bananas at their small wooden stalls, calling to one another with cheerful voices. Far ahead, beneath the great baobab tree, the ancient guardian of Makan, the elders sat in a wide circle. Their walking sticks rested beside them, and their soft murmurs rose like stories carried by the wind. One elder, Mama Reby, tapped her stick on the ground and said, "The world is changing faster than the drums can beat. But a village that forgets its roots becomes a tree without a shadow." The others nodded. Their wrinkled faces glowed with the wisdom of generations. Not far from the baobab, a man walked steadily along the road with a calm strength that made people greet him with respect. This was Musa, a single father known across Macan for his gentle heart and steady spirit. His clothes were simple, but his presence carried quiet dignity. Some said he had the patience of the river. Others said he had the courage of the lion who walks alone. As he moved, villagers called out, "Musa, may your day be blessed." "And may yours walk in peace," he replied with his warm smile. Beside him walked his daughter, Amina, a shy 9-year-old girl, whose small hand clung softly to his. Her eyes were bright, but often hidden behind lowered lashes. She loved learning, more than games, more than food, but insecurity hung around her like a quiet shadow. She always feared making mistakes, always wondered if she was good enough. Musa noticed every time her shoulders drooped, every time she pulled back when other children ran past them laughing. "Are you afraid of the day, my flower?" he asked gently. Amina shook her head quickly. "No, Baba, I'm just thinking." Musa smiled knowingly. A child who thinks too much forgets to breathe. Remember, even the smallest bird learns to fly by trying. Amina looked up at him, and for a moment, her smile flickered like morning light on calm water. Together, they approached Macan Primary School, a building that stood proudly at the edge of the village. It had modern walls, clean windows, and a large blue roof, but the soul of Macan still lived inside it. At the entrance stood a carved wooden statue of a wise elder, reminding every student that knowledge without respect is an empty pot. Teachers were treated like family here, honored like village elders. As Musa arrived, Teacher Gondo, a tall man with a deep voice, greeted him. "Musa, you raised this girl with the strength of 2 parents," he said. "Amina is quiet, but her mind shines." Amina blushed and pressed herself behind Musa slightly. Musa placed his hand on her shoulder. "Her spirit is strong, but shyness ties her down like a rope." Teacher Gondo nodded thoughtfully. "Then we must teach her not only numbers and words, but courage. Sometimes the world tests the quiet ones the hardest." Musa's eyes softened. "I know, and I fear the world is already whispering doubts into her ears." Amina listened quietly, feeling the weight of their words, but also the warmth in them. Her father's belief in her was like a shield she wished she could wear all the time. Around them, the schoolyard came alive, children shouting, books opening, teachers calling names. Yet something in the air felt deeper, like the ground itself was preparing for change. Macan was walking a thin line, balancing old wisdom and new education, and every child carried a piece of that journey. As Musa prepared to leave for work, he knelt beside Amina. "My child," he said, "remember this. The tree that bends with the wind does not break. Walk softly, but do not hide your voice." Amina nodded, though her fingers trembled as she held her school bag. He gently tapped her chin upward. "You were born for more than fear." With that, he stood and walked away, his footsteps steady, his spirit strong. Amina watched him go, her eyes filled with both love and the silent insecurity she carried like a small stone in her pocket. Yet deep inside, a seed of something new had been planted. Maybe courage, maybe hope. Time would tell. And so, the day in Macan village began, with old traditions watching from the baobab, and new lessons waiting in the schoolyard, ready to shape the destiny of a shy girl, and the father who believed she could rise. The morning sun stretched its golden fingers across Macan village, waking it slowly from its gentle slumber. Dust swirled along the red roads as children raced barefoot, their laughter like the rhythmic beat of drums calling life into every corner. Women arranged fruits at their stalls, mangoes glinting like small suns, bananas curved in perfect smiles, and oranges glowing with promise. Their voices intertwined with laughter and whispers of ancient proverbs, passed down like precious seeds. "A child who does not hear stories of old will not know the meaning of tomorrow," one woman said while handing a piece of cassava to a young boy. "Patience is the rope that lifts the weary heart." another replied, her eyes scanning the bustling street. Near the center of the village, under the wide canopy of the baobab tree, elders sat in quiet council. Their walking sticks rested at their sides, worn and polished from years of guidance. Every word they spoke carried weight. Every glance a story of generations. "The world arrives fast," murmured Elder Bahati, "but we must hold our roots firm or the winds will scatter the village like dry leaves." Elder and George nodded, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Our children must learn from both yesterday and tomorrow. The school brings knowledge, but not all knowledge honors the soil." And above it all, Musa walked steadily along the dusty road, a man known for kindness and calm strength. He moved like a river flowing quietly to the heart of the village. His simple clothes spoke of modest living, but his posture, his gaze, and the careful way he carried himself told a deeper story, of a man whose heart guided every action. He had lost his wife years ago, but sorrow had not hardened him. It had tempered him like steel. At his side, Amina, his shy 9-year-old daughter, clutched her school bag tightly. Her small steps mirrored her caution, her eyes darting nervously as she watched children run past in joyous abandon. She loved school, loved learning, yet her confidence often hid behind a veil of hesitation. "Baba," she whispered, tugging at his sleeve, "what if I make a mistake in class? What if the teacher asks me to speak and I can't?" Musa knelt beside her, placing his hands gently on her shoulders. Even the tallest tree began as a fragile seed. One stumble does not mean failure. "Amina, you must only keep growing." Amina's lips twitched in a shy smile. Musa nodded. She carries more courage than she knows. The school bell rang, its sharp voice cutting through the morning air. Children scrambled inside, books clutched in small hands, laughter mingling with nervous whispers. Amina hesitated at the doorway, then turned to her father. "I'll be okay, Baba," she said softly, though her voice trembled. "You will, my flower," Musa replied, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Walk in truth, and fear will follow behind you." As she stepped through the doorway, Musa watched her, his calm expression hiding the constant worry of a father raising a child alone in a village filled with expectation. Around him, life continued. The elders beneath the baobab spoke of balance. The women sold fruits and traded wisdom, and the children ran free, unaware that each day tested courage and patience alike. Musa stood quietly for a moment, his hands folded in front of him. The village, the school, and his daughter, all were connected by threads of tradition and change. His heart beat steady, strong, and unwavering. He was a silent guardian of both old values and new paths, a man whose actions spoke louder than any words could. And in that quiet morning, with the dusty roads alive with motion and sound, Makan village held its breath, as if sensing that this day, like all days, would teach lessons of courage, heart, and the delicate balance between past and future. The sun rose slowly over Makan village, spilling golden light across the red, dusty roads. The air was filled with the laughter of children, their small feet kicking up tiny clouds of dust as they ran past women arranging baskets of fruit at their stalls. Mangoes glimmered like little suns, bananas curved like crescent moons, and oranges shone bright, promising the sweetness of life. The women called to one another, exchanging greetings in whispered proverbs, each word carrying the wisdom of generations. "Patience waters the heart of child," Mama Nia said, lifting a basket cassava to her head. "And courage grows where love guides," replied Mama Asha, her eyes scanning the busy road. Beneath the wide branches of the baobab tree, the elders sat in council, speaking in slow, deliberate tones. Their voices carried like a gentle river over the village. Each stick resting by their side was a testament to decades of guidance, each wrinkle a story of life's lessons. "The children must learn both the old ways and the new," Elder Bahati murmured, gazing at the school in the distance. "Balance is the root of survival." "Indeed," Elder and George replied. "The school brings knowledge, but we must ensure it honors the soil that raised us." Through the morning bustle, Musa walked steadily along the road, his posture calm, his gaze strong but gentle. Known across Makan village for his quiet strength, he carried the weight of responsibility without complaint. His clothes were plain, but every gesture spoke of a man whose heart guided his hands. Since his wife passed, Musa had raised his daughter alone, facing the village's whispers and expectations with patient dignity. At his side, Amina, his 9-year-old daughter, held tightly to his hand. Her small steps were hesitant, her eyes darting at the children who ran freely. She loved school, loved learning, but the fear of faltering often clouded her heart. "Baba," she whispered, glancing up, "what if I forget what the teacher asks?" Musa knelt beside her, resting a steady hand on her small shoulder. "Even the tallest tree begins as a fragile seed," he said softly. "You stumbled today, Amina, so that tomorrow you may stand stronger." She nodded, a flicker of courage appearing behind her shy eyes. Ahead stood Macan Primary School, a structure where the old and new met. Fresh walls and clean windows reflected modern learning. Yet the wooden carvings at the entrance and the respectful teachers reminded all who entered the village's traditions. Knowledge here was not just numbers and letters. It was respect, courage, and the stories of ancestors woven into every lesson. Children ran across the courtyard, shouting and playing, while parents exchanged nods and greetings, their hands carrying baskets or their youngest children. The school acted as a bridge between past and future, where old wisdom met new knowledge. Teacher Kemi, tall and firm yet warm, noticed Musa and Amina. "Good morning, Musa. Amina is ready for another day of learning," he said with a smile. Amina blushed, ducking her head slightly. Musa's eyes softened as he spoke to her. "Your courage may be quiet, my flower, but it shines nonetheless." The school bell rang. Its echo bounced over the village like the call of an unseen drum. Children scurried to class, their laughter mingling with nervous whispers. Amina lingered at the doorway, clutching her bag tightly. Musa bent to her level. "Walk with truth today, Amina," he said. "Even when fear knocks, let your heart lead." She took a deep breath and stepped forward, small but determined, while Musa watched, standing firm like a guardian of both her present and her future. Around them, the village thrummed with life. The elders spoke softly under the baobab, the women traded fruits and wisdom, and children played with innocent joy. And in the quiet spaces between laughter and conversation, the school hummed with the promise of knowledge, courage, and the delicate balance of honoring the past while embracing tomorrow. Musa straightened, hands clasped behind his back, letting the morning light fall upon his calm, strong figure. His daughter walked inside, carrying her timid courage like a small lantern. And in that moment, Macan village seemed to hold its breath, as if sensing that the day would teach lessons of heart, perseverance, and the bond between father and child, a bond strong enough to guide the quietest spirit toward courage. She looked up at him, a small flicker of courage in her wide eyes. "I will try," she murmured. Together, they approached the school, a building that stood between eras. Its walls were fresh and white, a symbol of modern learning, yet the roof and carved wooden details paid homage to the traditions of Macan. The calabash at the entrance reminded every child that knowledge must honor the past. Inside, the teachers moved with authority and warmth, respected not only for their knowledge, but as guardians of both learning and culture, like village elders guiding their flock. Teacher Kemi noticed him approaching and smiled warmly. "Musa, Amina is ready for a new day of learning," he said, bowing slightly. "She may be quiet, but her heart is bright,